Okay, so today's June 8th. We are about 2.5 months in for COVID-19, and we're about 12 days in from the George Floyd activity here. Lots of craziness going on, but that makes it all the better for a time to just talk about regular business. And today, me, Adam Schneider, I'm going to be interviewing Jamie Lewis. We're both with HomeVestors of America. I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina, and Jamie's coming to us from Knoxville, Tennessee. And we're going to do about a half an hour interview for Jamie. He's a successful franchisee. And I thought there might be people who might be interested in career changes, might be interested in joining HomeVestors, or might be interested in doing business with Jamie, who'd love to hear his story. So we're recording this. Jamie, are you ready to rock and roll?
Let's go.
Okay, excellent. I'm glad you haven't pleaded the fifth or anything already. We're just getting started. So Jamie, you started with HomeVestors when?
2013, I signed on in July. Initially, I was full-time banking and part-time HomeVestors, and we can get into that more. But so the first 6 to 9 months, I was kind of trying to do two things at once. So so full-time, I got into it 2014, so about 6 years ago.
Okay. How long were you in the banking industry?
I was in banking for 17 years, commercial lender most of that time. Went through the Great Recession, and that got to be miserable, and that kind of led me to searching for doing something else. So 2009, 2010, banking got so miserable, and we just decided, it was time to do something else. So that's when we started looking to figure out what the next step in life would be.
And when you say we, you're talking about you and?
My wife, Celeste,
okay.
And I. So we partner on everything, and just she helps in the business some, not a ton. Most of the time is her job as homemaker, but she does help me out some. So.
Okay, so 2010, you started thinking about it. 2012, you're starting to get more serious about leaving the banking. And were you looking at another corporate job or another franchise, or was there something about real estate? How did that thought process go?
It was a combination of all of that during all that time. So I was looking at, what I could do in the finance world, what I could do. I really wanted to do something entrepreneurial, because I had banked all these companies for all these years, and I saw, what they had as far as flexibility and the ability to, do your own thing, how you wanted to do it, not being so structured in such a structured environment. So I kind of started looking, and me and a buddy of mine actually started we looked at several franchises. We had several meetings with those guys, different things from junk be gone to, I don't know, there was probably 10 of them we kind of looked at and got the disclosure information on, and nothing ever felt right. Celeste and I always had been interested in real estate. We'd always, we dabbled in rental stuff here and there. We had just a couple here and there. We actually in 04, I think it was 04, we built a house and kind of somewhat played contractor on it. We had a contractor, but we ended up having to oversee a lot of that, and really, oddly enough, enjoyed that process of building a house. And we can contemplated, going into, new builds kind of stuff, or then we really got the bug to get into the remodeling houses and flipping. And that's kind of where it all started, with the real estate side. So we kind of just kept kind of working through that process. And we got to the point where we kind of had a line of credit lined up, to do a small house if we could find one, and went to searching to find a house, and we could not find a house. I mean, I'm not kidding you, I went to probably 50 foreclosure auctions in probably 6 months time. I was there almost every foreclosure auction, and I wasn't getting anywhere close to what they were offering, what the auctions would go for. And I tried MLS, I told every realtor I knew, could not find a single house. So one day I'm talking to my neighbor, and he's talking about a franchise for to build houses, a new build. And I was like, what? Why would you need a franchise for that? I don't understand the purpose in that. And so I'm sitting there in my driveway talking to him, and I look up franchises to flip houses, HomeVestors pops up, and that started my process. And I called corporate like the next day and we started the process then.
Got it. So you bring up a couple of really interesting things. So really, of the people who join HomeVestors, they come from two buckets. One bucket is people who are from a corporate world who may not have had a lot of real estate experience, which you had a little bit, right? But not a ton.
Yeah, very
and
little.
Then, and then we get a lot of people who are investors who've been doing the business, and they're just dissatisfied that they can find enough properties that meet the numbers they need, and they need help with the lead. And that's sort of your story as well on that one. Yeah, fair enough. So you joined HomeVestors, and when you did that, this was not too long after really the 08-09 crash really clobbered a lot of people in the real estate market. And so a lot of people had left the industry for a while. And I think that was your case, right? Because when you went to Knoxville, where you're from, and you started with HomeVestors, you were the first one in there at that time. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm the only one. Yeah, I was the first one ever to be in Knoxville. And I was by myself for about the first 3 years. So it was, around here, you had some people, that knew a little bit about HomeVestors from like the Atlanta market or other places they've been. But around here, I was kind of new guy. So, that was good and bad, because I could, kind of do my own thing, but I also didn't have, the whole brand behind me at that point. Now, since we've grown to, we've got 5 now. We've been up to 6. We're back to 5 now, franchisees in our market. And quite honestly, like really now people know us. I mean, we've had, billboards up for the last 3 or 4 years, I guess. So we're definitely are known now, and that is a huge advantage going forward.
Why? Why is that a big advantage?
Well, there are in Knoxville, there are probably 3 or 4 big players that do what we do, but we have the much bigger presence. I mean, people know us because our billboards, they know the caveman. So instantly when people say, I need to sell my house fast, or I need to just get out of this situation, now it's popping in their heads, HomeVestors. So they go online and they look us up, or they get a letter from us in the mail and they look at it and say, oh, that's those guys, I need to call them. So it's been a great advantage having more people in the market.
So talking about the brand, some people know us as HomeVestors. Some people know us with the caveman guy with the We Buy Ugly Houses. Some people don't really connect the two, so you have to do a little connecting. Is that fair on that?
Yeah, I typically have to connect the dots, because if I say, we're either the caveman or the We Buy Ugly Houses, it instantly goes, oh yeah, we understand. I know who you are. Yes.
Right. And do you think that some people are put off by that tagline of We Buy Ugly Houses when we send them a letter or a mailer?
I've had, doing this for 7 years now, very few people have been turned off. Not near as many as I thought it would. Like initially, I didn't love the tagline. I would get, on my marketing stuff, I'd say #1 home buyer. But now I'm all about the We Buy Ugly Houses, because, I think that just grabs people's attention more. And I don't think it offends, at least I have not found it offends greatly people. So,
yeah, I think it's a double-edged sword, because for some people, we're inviting them that it's okay if their house isn't very good looking. That's what we buy. And some people get offended, and sometimes we have to explain that it's really more about an ugly situation than an ugly house. Do you find that? Or
I agree completely. That's what, when you explain the whole situation thing to them, I think that makes a huge difference. And, be quite honest, most of the houses we buy are very ugly. They have issues that need work, and most of the people recognize that their house is that situation. I bought 80 something houses now, and I've bought, maybe 5 that could have been sold by a realtor, and, probably 70 to 75, I would guess, were in shape that they needed me. So
80 houses is a lot of houses to buy.
Yeah. If you'd have told me I'd have bought 80 houses 7 years ago, I'd have told you were crazy, and, I had like I said, I went to all those auctions and had all the amount. I had a hard time pulling the trigger the first time, but then it gets to be where you're numb to it. And it's like, hey, I bought another house today. You don't ever want to get to that point where you're numb to it, but it's a, it's a whole different world now as to when I first started.
So do you find that the business is lumpy or consistent?
The business is very lumpy. My goal is typically, I want to buy one and sell one every month. That would be a perfect world for me, to buy one and sell one every month. Not perfect, but that's a goal, is to buy one, sell one every month. That never happens. It comes in clusters. I had a period one year in July, I think it was 17, maybe July of 2017, where I bought like 7 houses in 6 weeks. I mean, and then you get them under contract and they're like, oh boy, this is good. How am I going to handle this? And then you just work it all through. But so it is very lumpy. In the end, it all works out.
Now,
Yeah.
Jamie, there are some people who join and they want to buy a lot more houses than you're buying.
Right.
And there's some people who don't want to buy that many. You've sort of settled on a number, just using your roughly one a month or so. Why is that the right number for you, and where does that land? Is that more of a cash issue, or is that more of a work-life balance issue with your family, or where does that come from?
Yeah, I'm in a situation right now. I've got 3 kids. They're 14, 12, and 10, and they're all very active. And I coach them. I do everything I can with them. So right now I'm in a like you say, a work-life balance situation. Basically, I've come to find if I do 9 to 10 houses a year, I make a comfortable living and I can pay all my bills. If I do 12 to 15, it's better than that. I could do 20. One year, I think the most I've done is 20 in a year. I could handle that. It's a lot of work. I'm not afraid of work, but right now I'm in a position where I want to spend a lot of time with my kids while I still have them. And this job gives me unbelievable flexibility to that. And I joke all the time, we'll make a good living right now while the kids are young, and we'll be involved in everything we can. And, my youngest one now is 10. So really in 5 or 6 years, I'm going to be, kicked out of his life, and, not as necessary for him, so I'll have a lot more time to devote to this, and we'll kick it into gear. And, that's the plan right now, and go forward.
Got it. So let's bounce around a little bit. Let's talk about the org structure. So for me, I've got a coordinator who helps me out, and I've got a buyer who helps out and goes on appointments. So it's mainly a 3-person team. And then we have some common, consistent people who help out in support roles like home inspector or a go-to contractor, things like that. Talk about how you're running your business.
So, I have personally looked at all kinds of structures, because when I got to where I was, doing the 20 houses at a time, or that year I did 20 houses, I was about ready to look at coordinator. I was ready to look at, even a possible buyer. Finally came to the conclusion, I like at this point, when I'm hanging in there at doing about 1 a month, I can handle that no problem. With Celeste helps out a lot on the operation. She'll do the financial stuff and that kind of thing. So if she can take those burdens and bill paying off of me, I can handle a house a month, no problem. So right now, we've chosen it's just me I do all the buying, I work with all the selling. I do have we do have third parties that we use. So I've got a contractor who I've had with me for about 5 years, and he does 90% of his businesses for me. So he's not on payroll for me. He's a 1099 guy, but he's got a crew, and I keep him busy all the time. I've got a secondary crew that I keep busy most of the time. And then sometimes I have to pick up a 3rd and 4th crew. I've got a plumber, I've got an electrician, I've got, you line all that, you get these alliances with all these people that you call them, they know you're going to do all these houses and have rental properties, and they'll jump whenever you're ready to jump. But I like being the solo operator. I've looked into, adding a helper here and there, and I've talked to several guys, including obviously you, Adam, about virtual assistants and all that. But as of right now, I can handle it by myself with that volume to do that.
Okay, so you've got an org structure that's very nimble, which probably comes in really handy when we have changing events like we have right now. So that's good. So you said you want to buy one and sell one every month. Let's talk a little bit about the disposition of the acquisition. So when we acquire, we're discount home buyers. That's how we describe ourselves. And then when we sell them, we have some different models of selling. So we could either wholesale or assign to another investor. We could keep them as rentals. We could fix them up a little bit and make them qualified for loans, or we can do a full rehab. So talk a little bit about how many rentals you have, if any, and how many you try to acquire and keep, and how you make your decisions about your disposition.
Okay, so each time, when I look at a house, I and a lot of this depends on cash available, cash flow, what I've got going on at the time. If I've like right now, because, things have been a little slower during this thing, COVID, obviously, I'm in a very good cash position. So right now I would look for rentals. I'm actively looking for rentals to add on. I have 12 rentals currently. I've been up to 14, the most I've had. And I've just sold off a couple just for financial reasons. It made sense to sell them. I would really like to get to about 20 rentals. So right now I'm actively looking for rentals, and my philosophy there, that's become my retirement strategies, the rental side of it. But I'm also, those rentals kick off a lot of cash flow every month. So right now the rentals cover about half of my monthly HomeVestor overhead type numbers. So if that's why I figure if I get to 20-ish, that'll cover all that overhead stuff. It still pays for all the rentals and overhead. So that's kind of where I want to get on that side of it. Other than that, I still, when I buy a house, you learn, when you first start with HomeVestors, they're like wholesale, and I get that. It's a great way to do it. You want to wholesale and build up your cash flow and get things going. We kind of did not do that early on because we were wanting to get in this business to be rehabbers. So early on, we've rehabbed a lot of houses, and we love that side of it. Come to find out, at the end of the day, I'm not a great rehabber, to be honest with you, financial wise. You do all this work, you put everything into these houses, and at the end of the day, I make more money when I do less rehab, is what I've come to find out. So
how's that possible?
Well, it's possible because you spend a lot of time on these rehabs, a lot of time and energy. You come up with you formulate this budget, and if you every major rehab I've done, it's got surprises. It's got surprises in the numbers, and at the end of the day, even if you build in a number for surprises, it's got more surprises. And then you hold a property for 6-9 months, and that's a lot of holding costs you have in there. So, I may do a rehab, and 6-9 months later, I come out and I make $30,000 on it, which sounds like a great number, but I'll go do a wholesale or a hotel, which is, I call it, my definition of hotel is I buy it and get all the ugly stuff taken care of so you can get a FHA type loan or any kind of loan on it and sell those. And that's the ones I may make 20 to 25 on those, but it's so much less work and it's so much easier. So when I can do that, I do that, but each house presents itself different, so I've always said, if I do 10 houses, I would like to, rehab really 2 of those, maybe hotel 2 or 3 of those, and then wholesale 5. On average, that's probably where I come out. But last year, 2019, I ended up rehabbing. I think I rehabbed 6 or 7 houses last year because they just presented themselves as rehabs. It's kind of, once you get in this for a while, you look at a house and you're like, this is a rehab, this is a wholesale. There's one county I buy in that I bought 15 of my, 85 houses in this one county north of Knox County, where our main area is. But so I've done 15 up there. I've got it down up there. I don't do rehabs there. I buy these houses for 15 to 20. I wholesale them for 40 all day long. I've done that over and over again. So if I get a call for one of these, they're war houses. They were built during World War II. We had the atom bomb here in Oak Ridge. They built it. So they were all built in a 1-year period. There are all these block houses, and there's tons of them over there. And I love them. But if I get a call on that, that's what I'm going to do. So it kind of depends on what presents itself to you as to what you kind of have to do with the house, is what I've
So
found.
I just want to repeat something you said. You're saying that you're able to buy houses for $15,000 to $20,000.
Yes, yeah. That's
Wow.
another thing I really didn't realize a whole lot about before I got into this. I didn't know they were really 50. I mean, these are in pretty decent areas too. They are these old houses. Most of them are 900 square feet. They only have 5 of those plans over there, for just to use those for example. So they're 900 square feet. They're 20,000. I sell them for 40. Now that the market over there's come up, when I first started doing this, the market was 50 or 60,000 for those that even fixed up. Now they're 80, 90, 100,000 fixed up. The numbers still aren't great to do rehabs over there, but yes, surprisingly, I bought a lot of houses for less than $20,000 that are in not the areas you would think for that kind of price. Yes.
Okay, let's bounce around a little bit more. So in terms of cash, you don't buy all these with your own money, right? So HomeVestors has an option. So a lot of people join HomeVestors because HomeVestors will fund the deals, and then you get to know private lenders to help you out. So sometimes you're using other people's money. Maybe people are using bank loans for the refinances on them. How much of it do you think you do with your own cash versus someone else's money?
Yeah, so that kind of depends on where I am in my cash flow cycle. But so right now I've got like quite a bit of cash, but there gets to be times, last year when I had 4 or 5 rehabs going at one time, that takes a lot of cash I had a lot of money out before I could get the draws from the loan from the banks back. So I've learned to, even when I have a lot of cash, a lot of times I'll still borrow the money because, even borrowing the money on a lot of these wholesale deals, you're in and out of them so quick, the borrowing cost doesn't eat you up. So I have, when I first got into the business, exactly what you said, I love the fact that HomeVestors lent money on this because back in 13, 14, there weren't a lot of hard money lenders. Banks weren't touching this stuff. And I was brand new. Even being in the banking business 17 years, I was brand new to this industry. Nobody from a bank would have lent me money. And still, it's very hard to borrow money on rehabbing houses. So HomeVestors, they offer the financing to new franchisees. That was one of the main reasons I jumped on to start with. So I used
Okay.
HomeVestors money to start with. Then I established relationships. After you get going for a while and I've done a few houses, all these hard money lenders will, they'll come and really want your business. And, before COVID, there was a lot of hard money out there available to borrow. I mean, there's still a lot of hard money out there available, but it's come less. But once you get the history with these guys, they'll jump all over themselves to
Okay.
lend you money.
Jamie, are you a licensed real estate agent?
I am not. So my plan was to become a agent. But HomeVestors partners with a company so I pay $79 a month. I have MLS access all over the whole country. So I use that. And I've partnered with a local realtor who lists all my properties for a reduced rate because she gets everything I list. And no, I'm not.
Okay. Yeah, in our market, about half of our franchisees are agents and half aren't.
Mhm.
Because HomeVestors has got that national deal with this company, you can get the MLS access, and people feel that it's not as important, but some people still like to do it. So you have no intention of being.
I have no intention.
an
I
agent.
was actually signed up to go through all that whenever HomeVestors made that deal with that MLS company. So
Got it. Okay. All right. Got that. Let's talk a little bit about advertising. So we talked in the very beginning that you're trying to get access to these properties, and a lot of people join HomeVestors because it's really strong as a marketing machine. So you've got all these people you said in your market now. That'll confuse people, a lot of people who aren't familiar with HomeVestors, because if you have multiple franchise operators, it might seem like a cannibalistic kind of environment. Can you walk through how that all works?
sure. So yeah. So like I said, I was by myself for the first 3 years. All I was doing is sending out mailers, using HomeVestors to send out mailers, and then we added 2 really quickly together. So we went up to 3. So then, we're able to do, mailers to people. We're able to do online marketing. We're able to do billboards, and we really rapidly increase our presence here in the market. So, and then HomeVestors always has this national campaign going. So like you said, being part of that system is huge. And they can show us all these, matrices that show the more we have here, the more advertising we spend, the better results you have as a franchisee. So the more houses you buy because you are the big guy in town. So, I've got a good buddy of mine that, he was going to come on at HomeVestors and he decided not to, but he actually went kind of a different route, but he kept, trying to figure out in his head, how does that make any sense at all? And I kept saying, you look at every market that HomeVestors is in, and when they go from one franchisee to 5 franchisees, it gets better, as far as the cost to buy a house. So, it typically works. The more marketing you have, the more you're known, the more people are coming to you. So, it works.
So it's tough to have a really big ad spend if you're by yourself. So that's really why the teamwork comes into play.
Sure.
So everybody sends their advertising money in each month to a home office, and then the home office has an advertising wing, and then they'll contact their advertising council president for the area. Are you the ad council president or someone else?
I am currently, yes, I am.
Okay,
Yeah.
So you're the ad council president. So each month, the advertising point person from the home office will call you and say, Jamie, here's how much money we have, and then you guys somehow figure out how to spend it. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah. So they make a proposed budget for us, but it is our money. So we can vote however we want to do. I mean, if we wanted to buy a blimp and send it around Knoxville, we could do that. But, obviously we're following their recommendations because they spend all this money on all this research. It's a huge advantage to have them in our back pocket because they're doing all this research on what works, on what the customer, what the guys that we're selling to or we're buying from, who they are, and how do we target them, and how do we do this. So that's another part. I mean, we'd have to have, several full-time people on staff to figure all that out. So I completely trust what they're doing because it always works out over the long run. So yeah, so we pool our money. They make a recommendation. We talk it out. We have a monthly ad council meeting and we talk it out. How do we want to do this? How do we want to do that? Sometimes they'll say, the home office will say, hey, we've got this extra money. We can do A or B, or how do you want to allocate this? And they kind of give us some options and we talk it through and we try stuff. And then we, they can test to see how that worked out and how many calls we got from that and how many homes we bought from it. I mean, it's amazing the amount of backroom support we get that I could never afford to do myself on all this advertising we do. So it's a huge advantage to be with HomeVestors on that side.
Yeah, I agree with you. So when a lead comes in, some people are going to be confused because if you have 5 people in your market and a lead comes in, who gets that lead?
So that's based on, so our budget now for our Knoxville is going to be around $20,000 next month. So however much each franchisee puts in percentage wise is how many of the leads, they do the big logarithm to flip those out to us. But so whatever the percentage you spend on advertising, you get that lead based on that. Like, so if 10 calls come in and you spent 60% of the budget, you get 6 of the 10 calls, and that is your lead forever. So if they call back, it comes back to you. So, even if they go online and do it, it's tied to that phone number. So it still comes back to you. So that lead is yours forever. Every ad council, sometimes some of these will come through twice and you'll say, oh, I'm talking to this person on this address. We work it out. Whoever got that lead first, it's theirs. So, we're working together in this thing. We're all here to help each other, and it's a great system.
Got it. Thanks for explaining that. So when you go and you go to a house and you make an offer, what percentage of the time do you think your offer is accepted on the spot, and what percentage of the time is your offer expected in some delayed time frame?
for me, it's about half and half. So, you know, yeah, it's right at 50% on when they accept the offer on spot, which I think is higher than most in the system, but it just seems to be, you know, if you talk them at the end of the day, most of these people calling you, if the deal is going to happen, if you're in their house and the deal is going to happen, it happens a lot that day. They're ready. Like, you know, I got a contract last week, and I did not offer on the spot because I didn't know it was an outlying area. I just didn't know it very well. And he was pushing me hard to sign the contract that day. He was so ready. So a lot of times these people are desperately ready to sell, and they'll sign that day. But about half of mine is done on follow-up, and follow-up is, you know, you've got get the system in place to follow up, and you know, usually I know that day how serious they are. Not always. You don't ever know for sure. Sometimes I get shocked and people call me 2 months later and say, "Hey, I'll take your offer," and you're like, "Whoa, I never saw that coming." But most of the time, you get a feel if they're serious about selling their house or not.
Okay. So do you have a CRM system?
Yes. Well, yeah. So we've talked about this before. So HomeVestors provides a CRM system through Salesforce, and it's you know, the people that use it, some people use it very extensively, some people use it not very much. I am one that does not use that as much. I'm more of an old school system that I use, but I'm actually in the process of using Sales. During this COVID, it's kind of gave me a chance to slow down and get in there and start using it more. So I'm advocating using Salesforce more, and I'm trying myself to use it more as well. Yes.
Okay, gotcha. What's been your thoughts on your goals for the future? Do you have a 3-year plan or a 5-year plan, or is it as soon as the kids get out of school, things change? Talk a little bit about what you're envisioning.
Yeah, it definitely is going to change eventually, but like, yeah, so 3 to 5 years, you know, I'm still in that window where, you know, we're just, you know, kind of surviving around here as a family. So yes, I still want goals will be 12 to 15 a year. That's kind of what I'm shooting for. Still want to I'm still trying to add 2 to 3 rentals a year out of that pocket. So that's where I want to be, because like I said, I want to get to 20 to even 30 rentals is kind of the goal. So, you know, 1 a month is basically where I'll be the next 3 years. Probably 4 to 5 years is where I'll start ramping up a little more. I'll be able to spend more time with this. You know, right now I have no weekends to devote. I don't do a lot of weekend and night stuff. So it's really Monday to Fridays when I'm dealing with all this. So definitely going to ramp it up more in 4 to 5 years.
Okay. Jamie, you said a lot of really nice things about the HomeVestor system, ranging from the leads to the follow-up to some systems. We didn't really talk too much about the training, but the money available, but it's not for everybody. So obviously, as with everything, there's some people where it's just not going to be a good match. So if somebody were to come to you and say, "I'm thinking about joining HomeVestors," and you were to give them some advice or some things to think about, or maybe for some people where they should really think that might not be a good match, talk a little bit about some things that people should be thinking through as they're considering joining.
Sure. So, you know, over this time, you know, I've talked to a whole lot of people wanting to come in to the market and do it and to HomeVestors. And so the 2 main things that I think of whenever I talk to them, most of these people, is, first of all, it's a system, it's a franchise. If you're paying money into a franchise system, you need to buy into the franchise system. It makes no sense to be part of this franchise system and not follow the system. That's when I joined HomeVestors, I probably talked to 25 or 30 existing franchisees, and I talked to a couple who have failed and were out of the system that I'd found through channels that I knew. So it was a consistent thing. The ones doing well follow the system. Now, nobody's going to follow the system perfectly. It's your business. You're going to tailor it to your personality and whatnot. But if you basically follow the system, it works. No doubt it works. The ones not following the system failed, and a lot of them didn't even understand why they failed, but they weren't following the system. They want to do it their own way. If you're a system follower, if you can do that, it will work. Second thing, you've got to have capital or access to capital. to be in HomeVestors. If you don't have the bank built up, and if you don't have access to money, it won't work. You've got to have money to make it work. That's the two things I tell most people that I talk to. I mean, there's a lot of other caveats, but that's the two main things I see that help you make this system work.
Thank you for being so straightforward on that. So on the money, when you say you have to have capital or access, are you saying someone needs $10,000, or are you saying they need 75 to 100, or are you thinking they need 3 million? What ballpark kind of range?
Yeah.
Like to get started, to have a runway to learn what's going on and all that. What range are you thinking when you say that?
Yeah. Now my number, when I talk to other people, my number may seem a little high to some people. I throw out at least $100,000 to get started, because I mean, now it costs $32 to buy in to HomeVestors, I believe. And then you're going to need that other 68 or so to get your marketing going, to get your, you got to, when you buy houses, there's closing costs. If you do any rehab at all, that's out of pocket. So my thinking is, $100,000 cash or access to $100,000 is kind of what I tell people.
Okay, so capital, that's a critical thing. I'm glad you brought that up. Everybody wants to know about that. So some people like being part of a system and part of a group, and some people don't. If you're an individual investor, not part of a franchise system, as an example, it can be sort of lonely out there, but also some people like that more and they think it's more fluid. And then other people just really appreciate the system, the network, and all that. So can you talk about where you land and which way HomeVestors is on that topic?
Yeah, so I love being part of a larger group. I definitely enjoy that. That has helped get me to where I am today, no doubt. So when I started, like I said, I was here by myself for several years, and that gets very lonely when you're in a market by yourself. But I wasn't really alone. I had, we call them development agents that you can call at any time. They help you work through the system. I also quickly learned I needed to talk to, there's a couple guys in particular that I talk to on a weekly, at least bi-weekly basis, one of them being Adam, another guy in Columbia, Greg, that I would talk to, because those guys were a year, 2 years ahead of me, and I could talk to them. They'd been through it. Being part of the system is huge. They're going through the same things, so connecting with them and saying, how do you do this? And I still do that with these guys. So, I'm 7 years into this and I still feel like I don't know anything, even though I've learned all this information. So it's great to talk to everybody and we keep each other in check and help each other out constantly. That also, and HomeVestors gets together, June and December, we have conventions. So those things to recharge my batteries are so important, to go out there and meet with all these other franchisees and go through the sessions we go through is invaluable to me. So I'm a huge proponent of being part of the larger group.
Got it. Yeah, I feel the same way. It's nice to get your battery recharged, and sometimes you can be getting your own way with your thoughts, and then someone else gets you recalibrated.
Yes.
You made a comment, Jamie, earlier that you think that you close about half of your appointments into other ones that become contracts, that about half happen on the spot. That's an incredibly high number compared to the system numbers. What do you think is the difference? Is it something about the market, or do you think it's just the way you carry in your strategy with your appointments?
That's a good question. I don't know. It just seems like, I don't know. I don't have a good answer to that. And I don't know why that's happened to me, but it just seems like I can get a feel, early on in the appointment, I get a feel whether these people are like really interested in selling. And by the end of the appointment, they're ready to go and just sign it up, I don't know. That's a good question.
I think it's probably becomes, you come from a place of abundance. And if you're coming from a place of abundance, then you're not as worried and stressed about trying to buy that house. And when you're more relaxed, I think the people become more relaxed on it. And you just come across as someone who's trying to help people. And I think that might be why you have that conversion rate. But yeah. So Jamie, I really appreciate you taking out this time this morning to share with us everything going on. You've been successful for 7 years. When you're the first guy in a market and you're able to navigate it, and then you're part of a team and you're able to lead it, and it's balancing with your work life, it's a pretty cool story.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Adam. It was actually good to share. It helps me rejuvenate myself when I talk about it. So it's good.
Yeah. Well, great. We'll enjoy the week and we'll talk later. Jamie Lewis, thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Adam.